Back here on the fifth quarter on the North Carolina Sports Network, this segment, a focus in on the new head coach of the Appalachian State Mountaineers, Dowell Loggins. And our guest is the afternoon drive host of the postgame show on 107.5 The Game, Jay Phillips. Welcome to the North Carolina Sports Network.
Thank you, boys, and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I don't know how many people in Boone and across the state were as surprised by some of us down here about that. They did a good job of keeping Dowell's candidacy kind of under the radar, man. Dowell, I'm not going to sit here and tell you we've turned into drinking buddies or anything, Mike, but I have gotten to know him in the couple of years that he's been here, and I'm fortunate I've gotten to spend some significant amount of time with him, especially at both of the South Carolina Pro Days where he's overseen the Gamecock offense. And really a lot of, and when I say off the record, I don't mean like any secretive stuff, but just that we had a time to really spend with him when we weren't doing a show. We were down there at the football facility and just listen to it. Most of his professional experience is in the NFL. And it's always interesting, especially as those two worlds kind of blend, now more than collide. And just listening to him break offenses down, break players down. And, this year, especially, if you look at last year, all right, South Carolina could not run the football very effectively, and they had Spencer Rattler, who got sacked darn near 40 times. This year, it's a completely different offense in terms of personnel. Most of the, at least a lot of what Dowell wants to do remained, and in terms of the verbiage and those kind of things, and what Lenoir-Rhyne was doing to learn last year under Spencer Rattler. But I've just been so impressed, me personally, with how Dowell brought Lenoir along this year and the patience that took. You guys all know, fans, I don't care what school, I don't care what level, it could be the NFL too. They just want it instantly, right? Like, make my team better, do what I want you to do. And that wasn't going to happen with a freshman quarterback this year. It had to come along methodically. Then he got hurt against LSU, missed a game against Akron where you can maybe work some of those principles in against a lower level opponent. Was not himself at all. Lenoir-Rhyne, against Mississippi, who came to Columbia and really throttled the Gamecocks. And then really the next week was Alabama, Mike. And from that point forward, this offense, Lenoir-Rhyne, it all started to come together. And you could see how Dowell really wanted to build upon the principles that they'd installed, that Lenoir began to understand it, to go through his progressions. I want to give Mike Shula a lot of credit too, who's on the staff here as an advisor. But those two guys working as quarterback coaches with Lenoir have really, you guys, nobody thought South Carolina was going 9-3 this year. And I think a lot of it is because of the patience and growth that allowed Lenoir to really start to flourish. But I give tons of credit to Dowell for the way he has really taught as much as coached. I really mean that.
Dowell's going to be introduced on Monday in Boone. We'll have coverage of that press conference here on the North Carolina Sports Network. But Jay Phillips of 107.5 The Game, what can you tell us about Dowell Loggins, the person? What kind of a personality is he? What kind of a guy is he around the facility, around the guys?
Well, at least with me, and again, I've been fortunate to spend some time with him, over the last couple of years. He's really engaging, Mike. Really, he's funny. He's smart. He wants to talk with you. You can tell, like a lot of great coaches, he wants to teach. And I'm someone that, even in my role, I have often kind of gravitated toward those coaches who are just as much about teachers as they are coaching. There is, I know you can have a Venn diagram there of where those things cross over, but there's a lot of that in Dowell. I really sense that he's patient, again, really smart. And, I'm not gonna sit here and talk poorly about the guy that he replaced, but in what I learned of Marcus Satterfield relative to what I learned from Dowell, you can just clearly see how the kids themselves gravitated toward what he wanted to do. And in my personal opinion, and I know it's an opinion shared by others, that was not the case previously in Shane's first 2 years with Marcus. Yeah, Marcus is really smart, but I don't know that a lot of what he wanted to do came through to the kids. And with Dowell, it's quite obvious that it does. I think that's a huge feather in Dowell Loggins' cap.
Guys, one of the things that I find fascinating about this hire for Appalachian State is they're going from, Sean Clark, who was a established All-American football player, from Scott Satterfield, who was an established winning championship quarterback for the Mountaineers. And now they go with a guy, Dowell Loggins, who did not play. Jim, what kind of a difference does that make when you have somebody who didn't play the game as opposed to somebody who did play the game? Does that make a difference here in 2025?
No, Mike, I don't think it does. There's a lot of people in the game now that did not have successful playing careers or didn't play at all, that are very successful head coaches. I mean, you quickly take a look at Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State, and I don't think in this day and time, with the resources that are out there, the ability to visit with people and the amount of video that you can watch and study and learn, and the opportunity to be on staffs and grow with people, I don't think playing is a requirement. Knowing how to treat people and knowledge of what you're teaching is a whole lot more important than what you did as a player, in my opinion.
What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, I would agree. And I look at Mike Leach, right? I mean, I think they're talk about how many guys are so-called disciples of Mike Leach over the last quarter century. And here's a guy who didn't play. I suppose it always helps. But if you've been around it a lot, and are able, again, like Coach just said, if you're able to take what you want to do and have it work and apply it, that's where, again, I don't want to overuse it, Mike, but I come back to the word teaching. To really have kids want to engage with you, then it's much easier, I think, to coach them later on. And so is it an added benefit? Look, I mean, Coach, you worked with Steve Spurrier. Steve Spurrier didn't just play. He won the bleeping Heisman Trophy, right? But I know that he found ways to engage with people and get them to want to believe. And I can tell stories about how Steve needed to hire G.A. Mangus here in Columbia to make sure Steven Garcia sometimes got those things to come through. But again, I've seen firsthand, just in a couple of years, how Dowell is able specifically to engage with those guys. And really, and I haven't even had a chance to talk about it on my show yet. I'm very anxious to kind of gauge the audience reaction and to talk to some others around the program. I mean, you can always go replace your offensive coordinator, but it's not just the OC. This is the guy who called the plays. This has been Lenore Seller's #1 quarterback mentor. There's a lot that is suddenly going to be needing to be replaced here in Columbia. So Shane's he'll get somebody, but it's pretty big shoes in my opinion.
Jay Phillips from 107.5 The Game in Columbia talking with us about the new head coach of the Appalachian State Mountaineers, Dowell Loggins. One final question for you, Jay. As you look at the Gamecocks, 9-3 this year, as you said, wins over Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Missouri, and Clemson. Big one right there in the Palmetto State. How many of these players that played for Dowell Loggins do you think may come to Boone and leave in the transfer portal from South Carolina? Because South Carolina's in the SEC. They're going to be constantly looking to improve and upgrade their roster. Do you get the sense that the very personal Dowell Loggins will have a nice pipeline that will flow from Columbia to Boone?
There are a few guys at skill positions that have already put their names into the portal. Where they want to go, who they've had contact with. I don't know. I guess officially you're not supposed to yet, right? Officially, I'm not naive, guys. Neither are y'all. I could see a couple. I could. In fact, Mike, one of the questions I asked myself today, about 20 minutes before I hooked up with you guys, is I wonder if Dowell takes anybody with him from the staff that's been working with him. I don't know yet. Like I said, this caught a lot of people in my business, our business here in Columbia, by surprise. I mean, you're always wanting to be a head coach, most guys anyway, if you can continue to climb that ladder. But this sort of came out of left field, at least from my point of view. So I'll be curious to see. But it would not surprise me. South Carolina has done a really nice job, and I can't think offhand. I apologize for some of the kids that are from North Carolina, but there's plenty from the area.
Right.
And in my personal opinion, you guys tell me otherwise. I really feel like in a pound for pound kind of way when it comes to how seriously football is taken on campus and from the alumni base. I feel like App State is number one with that in the state of North Carolina. In fact, I might put the folks in Chapel Hill at 3 behind the folks in Greenville. Again, my opinion, you all tell me different, but I look at this. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
NC State falls in there somewhere.
Yeah. State. I would say State probably 2 or 3 in there. But anyway, the point is, it's such an attractive job and lifestyle, and I think a lot of people will appreciate that part of it. I'll be curious to see. I wish I could answer your question more specifically, but in a general sense, Mike, I would tell you it would not at all surprise me if a few of the kids that weren't going to see significant time moving forward here in Columbia would want to make their way up to play for Dow in Boone.
That is Jay Phillips, host of the postgame show on 107.5 The Game in Columbia, South Carolina. We've been talking about Dow Loggins, the new head football coach of Appalachian State, formerly the offensive coordinator at the University of South Carolina. He is Jim Collins. I'm Mike Waddell. We'll be back right after this to put a bow on this edition of the fifth quarter as you're tuned in all across the bold North State on the North Carolina Sports Network.